Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago is called to order. I am Commissioner William Cressy and Secretary to the Board. Chairwoman Marisol Hernandez is on the phone due to illness. You are here, Chairwoman
Right.
Hernandez?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and to my left is Jonathan Swain, Commissioner. First matter of business is consideration of the agenda. Are there any objections to the agenda as stated by the commissioners? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next item is approval of the minutes. The first is the minutes of the special board meeting of February 28, 2017 in the PM. The chair entertains a motion to approve those minutes.
So move.
Is there a second?
I don't think I can vote.
Well,
Yes, you
then
can.
I
Yes,
will-
you can.
No, she can't.
Yes, you can.
She says she can't.
Yes, you can.
Oh,
You
okay,
can second as well.
Okay, second.
There you go. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. The next item is the minutes of the meeting, the regular board meeting of March 14, 2017. Chair entertains a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And the third set of minutes is the minutes of the canvassing and special board meeting on March 21, 2017. Chair entertains a motion to approve the minutes.
So
So
move.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report. Sir?
Thank you. Everything, after we had a proclamation, everything seems to be going well. Staff is working on cleanup right now. Just to let the board members know that the 3rd and 4th, I will be out of town. I've been invited to speak at an EAC meeting in Washington, D.C. But everything else seems to be going all right.
Very good. Next item on the agenda is the Assistant Executive Director's Report.
Good morning.
Good
I
morning.
have nothing further than what Mr. Goff mentioned. Staff, again, is just cleaning up. Registration department is busy all year long, so they are continuing with their work, and that's about it.
Thank you. And then move on to the report from the Communications Director.
In addition to routine activities, we're continuing to meet with the various city agencies and stakeholders regarding accessibility and polling places for 2018.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is old business. The first item is infrastructure projects and changes in election administration. Mr. Goff, anything to report on that?
No, we're having our demonstration on voting equipment on April 13th in our lower level conference room. That's all I have to add on that.
Thank you.
What time till night?
It starts at 9 o'clock and it'll continue, so each vendor gets an hour to, a half hour of demonstration and a half hour of questions.
Very good. The next item is under old business is electronic poll books. Anything on that, sir?
No, everything seems to be going well. We're looking at some modifications for the future. We'll let the board members know about that as soon as we get that finished.
Okay, next item, voting equipment. Anything to report on that?
Just the demonstration next month.
Very good. And the last item under old business is legislation. Mr. Scanlon, anything to report on that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think I notified the commissioners that there is a hearing in Springfield Thursday at 9 a.m. Hearing of the House Elections and Campaign Finance Committee. There are a number of bills that are going to be heard by that committee and their associated subcommittees. So it's going to be a busy day on Thursday. If the commissioners have any comments or questions with regard to any of the bills that are going to be heard on Thursday, please let me know.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
We talked previously about developing an agenda around vote center legislation. Are we still on track to do that this year, or will that be something for next year, next session?
Well, we've sent it down to Springfield and haven't had much traction yet, so it's something that we need to press.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, under new business, we have subscription agreement with SOE Corporation, doing business as SCYTL, for online poll worker training services. Laurel?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, it is for CITL, the continuation of services. CITL actually provides the production, houses our content, and is the software for our poll watchers' working responsibility. It's a training tool. It's an online training tool. Previously, we had the contract. It has since expired. There was automatic renewals. So now we're asking to continue these services starting January 1st of 2017 through December 31st of 2017 as well, with a one-year option should we need it. It's pending the decision as well as the selection or the potential of new voting equipment. So it's a 1 year.
Okay, and this is for training of the poll workers?
Poll workers' responsibilities. It's a
So
training tool.
this would be the judges of election and all the poll workers?
Election coordinator.
Election coordinators.
Yes.
Very, very good.
And the amount is in the amount not to exceed $33,220 for 1 year.
Very good. Any
Question, yeah,
questions?
question. So the online training that's done here is developed specifically for our operation?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And the form of it is what, video and other online content?
Correct. And it's all custom for our agency. For our
Okay, does
users.
it evolve over time? What I mean by that is things come up or issues we learn?
Yes, it does allow for us to modify it and to adjust it.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the recommendation for the award for a subscription agreement for online poll worker training services for judges of election. The contractor is SOE Software Corporation, DBA CITL. The contractor amount not to exceed $33,220 with a contract term of 12 months, dated January 1, 2017 through December 31, 2017. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is the legal report. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I have no matters to report at this time, but I would like at the appropriate time, if we could have a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to section 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss pending litigation.
Very good. I will call upon you to give me that section again when we get to that part of the agenda.
I will do so.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is the financial report. The first is a balance sheet and voucher listing for the city of Chicago, 2016 appropriation, 16-10 dated March 20, 2017, in the amount of $63,568.16.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. The second item under financial report is a balance sheet and voucher listing for the city of Chicago 2017 appropriation, 17-02 dated March 28, 2017, in the amount of $953,603.71. Is there a motion
So moved.
to approve? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it also passes unanimously. We are now at the public comment section of the meeting. I have now 3 individuals who have signed up sheets or request forms for making public comment. According to the rules that have been adopted by this board, we would ask the folks to step up to the podium when called, and you have 5 minutes, so please keep your comments to 5 minutes. The first is from Mr. Art Ellingson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Art Ellingson. I work as an election coordinator at the last election in the 41st Ward of Chicago. I've been an election judge in Chicago since 2012. I've seen good and bad things happen, and I want to explain that I've got a lot of favorable comments to make about the money you just approved for these videos. Those videos were excellent training materials. And I've got some ideas to make them better, but I'll save that for later since we're limited on time. 3 weeks ago, I was encouraged by my suburban friends to volunteer to be an election equipment manager for this next election for the suburbs because there's a shortage. And I got online and signed up for 3 classes of about 4 hours each. And a week or so later, I got a letter saying, because you served as an election coordinator, we want you to be an equipment manager in the suburbs. And they took me out of those 3 4-hour classes, put me into a 1 3-hour class to refresh my memory. And so I took that class last Saturday. Now, often when I speak at groups like this, I intentionally brag about not being the sharpest crayon in the box. Today I'm going to alter that a little bit. Because while I usually don't claim to be the sharpest crayon in the box, I have in my lifetime been told I was the sharpest, or one of the sharpest crayons in the box. When I was in high school, Taft High School, class of '68, I took this test called the NMSQT, which stands for National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And I was one of those National Merit Scholarships guys. I was accepted to 78 colleges I'd never heard of because I was a National Merit Scholar. Instead of going to college for 4 years because of the draft and because of my vision, I had an older cousin who went to the Naval Academy, and because of these classes, I knew I could never get into the Naval Academy, but maybe I could get into the NROTC at the University of Illinois. And they told me I was fine academically and everything, but because of my vision, I mean, I'm 20/20 with glasses, but without glasses, I was too blind to be a naval officer. I ended up joining the Navy and getting into a job that's originally called Radarman, and later was called Operations Specialist. Basically, it was an air traffic controller in civilian terms. I would be on a destroyer with a radar screen, and sometimes I'd be aiding in navigation, sometimes I'd be just looking out for other ships that we didn't crash into, and sometimes I'd be talking to our pilots from like an aircraft carrier and telling them, hey, I know a bunch of MiGs are over here and you're over here. If you want to go bomb this spot, you need to go this way to avoid these MiGs. This was a high-stress job. There's nothing more high-stress than to be on a Navy ship being buzzed by enemy airplanes. I did pretty well in that. I got promoted as far as I could go within the time I was in the Navy. And when I got out of the Navy, I went to college, went to Illinois State University. And while I was a math major and an accounting minor, I never took a class in taxes. I'm totally self-taught in taxes, and most of the money I've made in my life has been done with related payroll and income taxes. So I know how to read a technical manual. I was told when this class began Saturday afternoon that I was going to a class, I was expecting to be one of many Chicago election coordinators getting cross-trained to be a Cook County equipment manager. I found I was the only guy in the class. I kept asking questions during the class because 2 reasons. Number one, some of their procedures are the opposite of the Chicago procedures, which I thought was kind of nuts. We're following the same laws, we're using the same equipment, no reason to do things the opposite. And I had an instructor who did not speak English as his first language. He was hard to understand, and sometimes he would say something, and I would say, well, wait a minute. In Chicago, we do it this way. Do I really understand you correctly? And after an hour, I was pulled out of class and told, if you say Chicago one more time, we're going to kick you out of class. They also told us at the beginning of the class there would be no test at the end of the class. And at the end of the class, they basically flunked me because I wasn't fast enough changing the roll of paper in the touchscreen machine. Now in Chicago, we rarely have to change paper in a touchscreen machine. We, 3 votes, 14 votes, 95% of our voters use the paper ballots. I've only changed the paper on those machines in class. Never had to do it on the job. And very honestly, it took me a little longer than it might have taken me to do it if I was a whiz-bang expert at it. But I got the thing changed, and I know I'm out of time.
Yeah, if you could wrap up, I appreciate it, thank you.
But it seems to me that we are spending an awful lot of money with 2 different groups working in the same building, using different, we're following the same laws, we're using the same equipment, and we're doing things very differently. We're reinventing the wheel by 2 different groups of people. We ought to use the same, we do use the same equipment, we ought to use the same software, we ought to use the same procedures. I mean, there's a forum you could have, Ward 41, Precinct 7, and in the suburbs you're going to, instead of calling it ward, you're going to call it township and precinct number. I mean, that's ought to be the only difference. But we've got 2 different groups of people in the same building having totally different ways of doing things. And I think to save money, we should look at consolidating and learn from the other. I mean, I've now been exposed to how the suburbs do things. But we ought to learn from that to streamline and make the process more efficient. And the biggest thing would be to consolidate the Chicago Board of Elections with the Cook County Board of Elections, so that you're not having 2 different groups of people reinventing the wheel for the same thing on the same election day. It would also aid to having people move back and forth between the county and the city when there's 1 set of rules instead of 2. So, thank you much for your time.
Thank you. Before you step away, I just want to take a moment to thank you for your many years of service to the board as a judge and as an election coordinator, and your service to the country in the Navy, and also your service preparing taxes, because we wouldn't be here but for that. So thank you, sir, for all your service, and thank you for bringing this matter to the attention of the board.
Okay, you're welcome.
Next up, we have Daniel Sheehan of the Clean Count Cook County. Good morning, sir.
I just have a couple of questions for the demonstration, April 13th. Will there be time allowed for observers to examine these machines? Or will vendors answer questions while observers are kind of trying to test the machines, or was that?
We're going to have, well, what we have scheduled right now is for each vendor to demonstrate their equipment. Then after they demonstrate, they'll answer questions. And after the hearing, after the demonstration, all of them demonstrate, they can go back and you can review the equipment. So
Okay,
it'll be a long day.
Can you try and operate the equipment, or like a dry run, or not?
You can ask the vendors, and they will
Okay.
probably accomplish that.
Okay. And also, do we have to pre-register to be an observer?
No, you do not.
Okay, for either day?
No, well, it's only 1 day.
Okay, so we can't come down for the setup?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. And then we have Don Olson. And, step forward, what organization are you with today? You didn't fill it in on your form.
I think today I'll be citizen at large.
Citizen at large, okay. Don Olson, citizen at large, is here today.
Well, one more question for Mr. Goff, though.
Yeah.
The time, is it at 9 o'clock?
Starts at 9 o'clock.
And it will be in the lower level in
Yes,
this building?
in our conference room, the lower level.
Well, on the brink of buying new machinery for our elections, I would just like to ask the board to keep two principles in mind. And to realize that, I think there are lots of changes we need to make more than just buying new machines. We definitely, we know our old machines are falling apart. But this election thing, it's so integrated, and every aspect of it affects every other aspect. So it's not just the machines, they're not a thing unto themselves. They involve the count and the whole system of how we arrive at the count. So, and there are, from my browsing through the election code, there are lots of things that don't make sense, or things that contradict each other, or it's clear that this is a piecemeal thing that wasn't put together as a whole system. So I'd like to ask you to look at the whole system and realize that there may be more changes that need to be made, but it all needs to fit together in a logical way. And I know you're looking at some changes like voting centers, which I think some version of voting centers is a great idea. But I ask that whatever it is, that it be logical, that it makes sense with itself. When you stop and think about it, we're about to spend millions and millions of dollars on machines that I believe will produce a paper ballot. So we're spending millions of dollars on something to produce a paper ballot. Well, we can already produce a paper ballot with a piece of paper and a pen. So, it reminds me of these gadgets that you can buy for your kitchen, like to, slice an egg or something. It's like, well, you could just peel the egg and slice it with a knife. So are we doing something that doesn't quite make sense? I think it's worth considering things like that. Are we being logical in the way we're setting this up? The second thing I'd like you to look at is checks and balances. Because right now, we have a system with not enough checks and balances. And this is something that we need more of, and an accountant would appreciate this, I would hope. We have a system, in fact, we've removed checks and balances from the system. It used to be, once upon a time, there was this thing called a poll watcher. A poll watcher had the nitty-gritty of what a poll watcher did was, you arrived before the polls opened, you looked in that ballot box to make sure it was empty. Then you sat there all day long and watched that ballot box to make sure nobody stuffed that ballot box, to make sure that all the people who put ballots in it were legitimate voters. And at the end of the day, the ballot box was open, and you stayed right there while you watched it being counted. It was an observable count, so that you actually had the whole process contained right there on election day, and you got the count, and the count was observed. What we've done with machine counts of votes, whether it's touchscreen machines or ballot scanners, is that poll watchers can no longer observe the count being the most important thing in that process, the observing of the count. So I ask that you, and that's a check on the system that's been removed. And it happened in a polling place before the ballots were ever moved, so that you could actually watch those ballots from the beginning of the day to the end of the day and know that what was counted was actually what should have been counted. So we need checks in the system, and I'd like you to keep that in mind when you're thinking about these new machines. The further the check gets from election day, the more problems there are in between. There's a chain of custody that we have to trust. But the whole point of poll watchers and checks like that on the system is that we're not supposed to have to trust the Board of Elections. The system is supposed to be transparent so that we don't need to trust you. So I would ask you to consider the poll watcher's point of view, or the accountant's point of view in this process, that we actually have real checks on the system and not too many cracks in the system, and not chains of custody that are so far, that 2-3 weeks after the election, something's being counted, and all we have to do is trust that that those are the right ballots. I mean, even the commissioners can't guarantee that, because who knows what goes on in this building. So, I'm asking that we design a system that's logical and that has real checks and balances. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the public would like to make comment? Seeing none, that will close our public comment section of today's agenda. The next item on the agenda is executive session for the board. You mentioned something about this previously, General Counsel Scanlon.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask for a motion from the commissioners to recess into executive session pursuant to Section 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss pending litigation.
Very well, Chair will entertain such a motion. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 It's unanimous. We will now go into executive session. It is now 9:41, and I would ask that all individuals in the gallery and not required for the executive session, please leave. We will reconvene when we come out of executive session and report if there's anything necessary to report at that time. And then that would probably be it. And then the last item on the agenda is now is adjournment. So I thank you all for attending. If you choose to leave, I appreciate it. Thank you again for your comments from those from the public as well. Thank you. It is now 10:27 a.m. The board has just come out of executive session. Nothing was performed during executive session that requires to be reported at this time. I look to the agenda. The next item on the agenda is adjournment. And I look at our schedule of regular board meetings, and I see the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 11 per our previous calendar. Mr. Goff, is there any reason to meet any other time before April 11th?
No, there is not.
Is not. Therefore, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting until our next meeting, regular board meeting on April 11, 2017. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, hearing no discussion. The ayes have it, passed unanimously. We are adjourned.
Feel better, Marcel.